Hi there and welcome, Servus Bayern fans, to Säbener Straße, where Bayern Munich will have their final training session ahead of the third round match of this year's Champions League at Galatasaray Istanbul. Bayern will travel to Istanbul pretty much after this training session, where the press conference with Thomas Tuchel will be held this evening. And you can see Hermann Gerland is here as well, talking to Thomas Müller. He was always a very important person for Thomas Müller during his development. Hermann Gerland, currently he's the assistant coach at the under-29 German national team for head coach Antonio Di Salvo. And it's always good to see him around here at Säbener Straße. But let's look at the Bayern Munich team. It's not really as cold as it may look if you see at least one of the Bayern Munich players in attendance. But maybe it was for style reasons that Leroy Sané put on that balaclava there. So Bayern is in the lead in Group A, 6 points after 2 games. Galatasaray are in pursuit in second place. They currently are on 4 points after 2 games. So this is the top match of the Group A. And as you know, in third, Copenhagen, while Manchester United is still without a point in fourth place. And it's actually going to be the first time that Bayern Munich and Galatasaray Istanbul are going to play each other since the 1972-73 season, when they met in the first round of the European Cup. It was a 1-1 draw at Istanbul, with Gerd Müller scoring the equalizer, while at the Olympic Stadium in Munich, Bayern made pretty much the long story short with a 6-0, a convincing 6-0 victory. A brace from Gerd Müller, goals from Uli Hoeneß, Edgar Schneider, a penalty from Franz Beckenbauer, and Franz Bulle Roth, who also scored. So here is Thomas Tuchel talking to his players with Matthijs de Ligt next to him. You probably heard it in the press conference before the game against Mainz, where Thomas Tuchel outlined the time schedule with Manuel Neuer. Manuel Neuer will maybe return for the next Bundesliga game, which will be against Darmstadt. So he's probably not going to be in the starting 11 tomorrow against Galatasaray. Bit of an artificial rain shower here. The sprinklers are on, but it's a pretty beautiful autumn day here at Säbener Straße in Munich. And Professor Holger Broich is leading the pack, as always, with the warm-up lap. As you know, 15 minutes of practice session are going to be held before the doors will close. Those are the rules of the UEFA. And it doesn't really matter whether you are performing this practice session in your own training yard or whether you use the actual stadium that the game is going to be played in. But with all the traveling going on, Bayern preferred to have this training session in their own training facilities here at Säbener Straße at around 10 degrees Celsius currently, which I think is pretty pleasant, particularly when you have the chance to get a bit of sunshine. It's always nice to have. And in case you're watching us someplace else, that's pretty much exactly 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's Manuel Neuer warming up, and that's a really beautiful sight to see. His long way to recovery finally seems to be heading into the final straight. He appears to be fit, and Thomas Tuchel alluded to that situation with saying the most important thing now is to have those automatisms going with the central defenders. And this is something that can hardly be trained on a training pitch currently, because they are hardly training at all, with all the games coming thick and fast, coming every 3 days. There's a game, so there is no real 11 against 11 training going on. So it's not really that easy. And Sven Ulreich really did a great job against Mainz, didn't he? He's the perfect team player. To the microphones of the journalist after the game, he said he's happy for Manuel to come back, and he's happy to step back once Manuel is there again. Harry Kane, to say he is successful at Bayern is a complete understatement. Pretty much scoring in every game, or at least being involved in a goal. That was really a seamless transition, wasn't it? Kingsley Coman. With a bit of banter. Then receiving the ball from Mathys Tel. Bit of a light session at first, warming the players up, giving them a few touches with the ball. With Joshua Kimmich, who had to leave the German national team camp early with his injury, as you know, but he appears to be fit again in midfield. Now the change in those formations to get everybody moving a bit and to have everybody running around. It's going to be an interesting few weeks for Bayern Munich. I think they travel to Istanbul, as we said, with the game tomorrow. It's going to be an early kickoff, remember that. It's 6:45 Central European time, so not a 9 o'clock kickoff, 6:45. And then Bayern Munich will entertain Darmstadt on Saturday, a 3:30 kickoff, before they will travel to Saarbrücken at the Saarland, the smallest, or one of the smallest counties in Germany in the west. And they will play Saarbrücken on November the 1st at the German Football Federation Cup second round. Before, on November the 4th, Bayern Munich will travel to Dortmund for the classic Dortmund against Bayern Munich. And like I said, it's continuing on and on. Bayern will entertain Galatasaray after that. So lots of games, and you really have to make sure that you're not getting ahead of yourselves. You have to think from game to game pretty much. And that's what they do for the Champions League trip to Galatasaray Istanbul. For Galatasaray, it's actually the first game against a German club since they lost 2-0 against Schalke in the Champions League group stage of 2018-2019. While Bayern has actually won all 5 of their games against Turkish teams since that 1-1 that we just been talking about in 1972. And you may remember that encounter in 2017-18 in the round of 16, second leg, when Bayern won 3-1 at Beşiktaş, one of the local rivals of Galatasaray. as the Bayern team is continuing with a nice little warm-up. Alphonso Davies with the keepy-uppies, as is Serge Gnabry up front, who is obviously still removed from the real team training with the contacts and everything after he broke his arm. And at Galatasaray, as you might know, Angelino, the former Leipzig player, is in the squad, as is Kaan Ayhan, the former Schalke and Frankfurt and also Düsseldorf player. Same with Karim Demirbay, whom we also know from the German Bundesliga. He was at Dortmund, at Hamburg, at Kaiserslautern. He played for Düsseldorf, for Hoffenheim, and for Leverkusen, obviously. And you may know that Min-Jae Kim actually played at Fenerbahce, another Istanbul club from 2021 to 22. Everybody in motion. That's particularly important in those temperatures. And here's Jamal Musiala. He's been in fine form recently. He's always an exciting player to watch, isn't he? With his movement, with his skills, and he's so unpredictable in his movements and in the things that he does. You don't know what he's doing. There are some players that you know, well, he's going to cut inside, he's going to run along the lines, or he's going to take on his opponent, or he's going to pass. Well, with Jamal Musiala, everything is possible. And that's really what makes him so special, in combination with the fact that he's extremely quick. And he's really aware of the situations he's in. So he knows exactly where his fellow players are, whom to pass the ball to, or when to actually shoot for himself. And that's what makes him so unique, so special, so one of a kind. Well, Alphonso Davies still warming up. Well, summer's over, but autumn can be beautiful and warm as well. But it looks like the long pants are the weapon of choice these days here at the warm-up sessions and at the training sessions for Bayern Munich. Alphonso Davies, as he's stretching along. Only against Bochum he was substituted early. And here's Manuel Neuer. And there is this rule that is not really a written rule, but so many coaches that are talking about it, that it takes pretty much exactly the amount of time that you've been out of the game in order to get back into the game. Let's just hope that it's not the case for Manuel Neuer, who's been out the whole calendar year. But that's one of the reasons why they are actually trying to take no risk and giving him a week more rather than rushing his comeback. Harry Kane talking about him and his statistics a little bit earlier already. For the 30-year-old, it's been an extremely successful spell so far. 10 goals in 11 games for Germany's racket champion, particularly in the Bundesliga, where he scored 9 goals in 8 games. That is impressive. Scored once so far in 2 Champions League games. So he's still waiting for his first Champions League goal for Bayern Munich. Well, tomorrow is another chance, I'm just saying. And remember, it's an early kickoff, and you can follow this game live via social media at Bayern Munich, and obviously with the web radio. Download the app or log on to your computer to the web radio of Bayern Munich. We have English and German commentary for the game for you, as we always do.
Vier Bälle, 4 balls, dive low, right.
Thomas Müller.
What?
Who is always and who will always be important, even though he didn't have the number of starts that he had prior to this season. And he's still without a goal this campaign, while he was assisting 3 times in his 9 games so far in all competition. And the favorite question for journalists around the Bayern Munich camp is always, is this a Thomas Müller game? Because Thomas Tuchel was referring to a couple of games earlier as not being the Thomas Müller games. So that's why he was not starting Thomas Müller, but he can always be a difference maker, can't he? So that's always gonna be interesting. But he had a couple of niggles and injuries already. And let's see how the season will continue for him. Min-Jae Kim, as we said, played in Turkey a couple of years ago. And Bayern Munich still undefeated this season in the Bundesliga. 6 wins, 2 draws, and they won against Mainz 3-1 the past weekend. You probably have seen that, or at least highlights of that game. So we're well 15 minutes into this session. Time for the first rehydration break. After the light but still intense warm-up so far. Thomas Tuchel with Jolt Löw, his assistant coach, and Professor Broich on the right. So now the jerseys are gonna be handed out in different colors, you know, to separate a couple of player groups from each other. You know that. as the players are leaving this training pitch now, moving to another pitch as it seems. So those were the first impressions here during that training session. Looks like Leroy Sané is feeling the cold more than the other players are, as he braced with that balaclava. So like I said, thank you for joining us during that training session. And don't forget, it's an early kickoff tomorrow at 6:45. Bayern will play at Galatasaray Istanbul, Champions League third round game. And that's going to be important. So join us there and we'll catch you then. Bye-bye.